Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dr. Emmett Emery Sr. You Better Stand Your Watch, Leader and Leadership Podcast. Today, I'm going to talk about leadership in low-income areas / communities. A lot of successful leaders and leaders in general usually comes from low-income areas. And the success that they make from that community or that area, a lot of people don't know or understand what that individual went through as far as emotionally, or what drove that individual to be successful enough to come out of that particular environment. Or if the individual is a leader and they still have family that's still in that environment. Well, living on low income is a problem that approximately 37.2 million Americans face. While the definition of low income may vary per person and location, the federal poverty level, FPL, guidelines may help determine whether an individual is considered a low income earner or not. Yes, they evaluate you and see if you're low income or not. So if you, for example, you stay in a low income area, or we could say in inner city, what they call projects. But if you got 2 people in the household or 3 people in the household making money, you can't report everyone that's making money because they'll take you from the low income status to a higher status, and then you won't consider low income even though you're still low income. A low income community is generally defined as a population census tract that meets the following criteria: poverty rate at least 20%, median family income not exceeding 80% of statewide median family income. That's basically for tracts not located within a metropolitan area. Median family income not exceeding 80% of the greater of statewide median family income or the metropolitan area median family income for tracts located within a metropolitan area. Over 80% of low-income Black people and 3/4 low-income Latino or Hispanic people live in communities that meet the federal statutory definition for low-income communities, compared to just under half of low-income white people. Approximately 37.9 million Americans, or just under 12%, now live in poverty. According to U.S. Census Bureau, children are more likely to experience poverty than people who are over the age of 18. Now, these communities that I'm referring to, with the African American, I say when you say low-income areas, it based upon location determines the severity of the area. What I mean by that? High crime, violence, things of that nature. If you're in a low-income community in a southern area or in a country area, say non-city versus city, you're going to be less in tune unless you're walking or traveling a pretty far distance to the violence, to the crime, to the peer pressure. Because if you're in low-income areas in the inner city, a lot of inner cities, low-income areas, poverty communities are what they call project communities. Well, Chicago really don't have them anymore. They kind of tore down a lot of the projects, but the projects itself consume. You can have a project complex area that consume close to, I'd say, 1,000 to 2,000 families, probably more. And that's not counting a lot of the kids that's there. And a lot of them households was female over the family. The male wasn't there. Don't ask me why this is a different topic to go into. I don't want to go into all that right now because sometimes it upsets me. And with the Hispanics, it's more like the community. They be in low-income areas that's poverty. So it's violence, but not as much violence as in the African-American community because you're right on top of each other. And it said that children are more likely to experience poverty than people over age 18. Yes, children are. Thank God for the free meals that they have during school year. That's the way I end up surviving. We didn't have enough food to maintain 3 meals a day. So I love being in school. I love being in school so much for the meals that I went to summer school. So you got the breakfast, you got the lunch. And then when you go home, you might or might not eat a dinner. Over 80%, well, I am talking about children worldwide. Nogus Sadie stated, if rural young people account for more than 55% of the world's youth population, with 88% of them living in low-income communities, then why does youth representation and leadership positions have an urban bias? Why? This is worldwide. I haven't really, at this point, what I'm talking about now, it's not focusing on the United States. See, because poverty is just not in the United States. Poverty is everywhere. It's not just the what we call third world country, that poverty. You go to certain parts of London, and there's poverty. You go to certain parts of France, and there's poverty. You go to certain parts of Spain, and that's poverty. But everywhere you go, there's poverty, low-income communities. Are governments and international institutions really working for meaningful youth engagement? Or is it just tokenism? Just to say, I'm doing this in my country, or we have this program in the country, or we have this going on, to make people think that, hey, we're all in for the kids, and we'll make sure that the kids don't live in poverty, and then you make a trip over there and you see the kids in poverty. It's estimated by UNFPA that 175 million young people in low-income countries cannot read a full sentence. Majority of them are in rural areas. 500 million live on less than $2 a day. And 80% of young rural workers are engaged in informal employment, such as family farms and child labor. Yes, child labor. The kids in some of the countries work just as many hours as adults. The UNFPA stands for United Nations Fund for Populations Activities, which is today called United Nations Population Fund. It is a United Nations agency aimed at improving reproductive and maternal health worldwide. It began operations in 1969. I had never heard of it until I started doing research. So it's been active, but it sounded like it had not been that popular. Well, maybe I was just focusing more on the poverty in the United States and not country worldwide, when it's this pretty much focused on the low-income countries. And the United States is not considered a low-income country. Research shows that parents' socio-economic status plays an outsized role in setting children on a leadership path. Positive, negative. We were so poor, my outlook was, I would never be that poor again. I would never be in this type of community again. I would never be in a situation where I cannot compete academically. I never want to be in a situation where I'm sharing the same book as the other kids in grade school for 8 years. Went there from kindergarten to 8th grade, and we all use the same books. Nothing new. So I never do this again. Then you got the ones that fall into that arena and says, well, this way my mom lived, sometimes poverty, my dad, if it's a two-parent household. So this is what I'm going to do. And never progress out. But the ones that get focused when they're young, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be in this environment. I don't want to do this. I don't want to be in this situation. Those are the leaders that come out. A 2016 study by Canadian leadership expert Julian Barling with Julie Weatherhead, one of his PhD students at the time, was based on data collection from almost 10,000 Americans. This Canadian doing research over 10,000 Americans over more than 3 decades regarding their socioeconomic status, labor force participation, and child experiences. So they go into the economic statuses, the community, financial, what they're making, what they're doing with the money, how are they setting a budget, things of that nature. And then they look at the labor force participation. Are they working? Are they not working? Are they just laying up getting state assistance? Are they just getting Social Security? Are they part of the labor force? And child experiences. How's a child being raised? Is a child involved in academics? How's the learning curve for that child? Is a child being educated in the household? What is that child learning in that household? Child experiences. It suggested that persistent exposure to poverty during adolescence affected later leadership emergence due to the quality of schooling and the youth's sense of personal mastery. The belief that individuals can overcome failure and control their own lives is real. That's why a lot of individuals, not all, but a lot, let's say some individuals, that leaders that proceed out in their environment, I tell you, I'll never forget where I came from. Some say that to have a motivation to continue to go forward. Some say that because they don't want to be associated with that community again. So when you hear individuals say, I use my past in that environment with poverty and low income as a motivating tool to go forward, that means they're constantly driving forward. And those individuals become leaders. That means they're not content in being just average, because they know that average can easily sink to below. So they're looking to be more than average. So if they do stumble and have to take a step back, they step back to average. They don't step back to below, because they know what it felt like to be in low income. Now, one society we never talk about that's heavily related to poverty. We talk about the African Americans, we talked about the Hispanics, we talked about the Asian, we talked about anyone who comes into the United States from outside that's dealing with poverty and violence and things of that nature are always the ones on the research. But the individual that was here in the United States before anyone else came here have been going through poverty before we even start naming the word poverty. And that's the Native Americans. Now, the Native Americans are not mentioned in U.S. Census Bureau results. However, Native Americans in tribal areas have some of the worst housing needs in the United States. They face high poverty rates and low incomes, overcrowding, lack of plumbing and heat, and unique development issues. No matter who I talk to that said they came from low poverty, whether it be projects area, whether it be in the rural areas, whether it been cities that have the country areas, they had heat and water. If they had to walk to get water, they had water. But being on a reservation, Indian reservation, without lights, without water, no plumbing water, no water at all, trying to survive, that's true poverty. Leaders of today also comes from the American Indian low-income communities. Yes, a lot of our leaders come from that community. And I have the utmost respect from a leader that comes from that community, because even though I came from a low-income area, there was programs in place for me to eat. Whether my mother got a line and got the cheese, or she got the lunch meat, or she got the oatmeal, or she got the loaf of bread, whatever it was, or she got the milk, got the cereal, got the little the wheat chits they're having out in Illinois. We ate. But on that reservation, a lot of them don't eat. American Indian leaders was known for holding steadfast to tribal belief systems and values and fighting for the preservation and perpetuations of native identity, land, and sovereignty. We did something similar like that. My household, we held truth to the Lord, Jesus Christ. We focused more on spirituality, religion, and we didn't talk too much about our past, historical history. When I was young, I didn't get a lot of my kids got, and the kids are getting now, the Black history. It wasn't in the schools. And the books we was using, I go back to those books, they was outdated. I mean, the schools were so bad in the city of Chicago at that time, and now I'm going to talk about high school, that some of the kids, when they got to college, took English composition, and they didn't understand a lot of things involving English composition. So they struggle with that. I struggle with it. Predicate. Oh, what was a predicate? Prepositional phrase. No, on three, talk about periods, colons, capitals, nouns, verbs, adjective. That was it. From grade school up. And the books didn't help me when I was what? Middle school. Middle school, you had to learn the preamble to the Constitution in the public schools in Chicago. And the books that we have, the history books, didn't have it. So you had printed copies that they print out to you to learn it. Well, I couldn't learn it that way. So thank God the United States of America and the people who decided to do that had the episodes that came on the weekends for cartoons. I forgot what they called them. And I learned the preamble to the Constitution. I still remember. We the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice. See, I remember that. And I learned conjunction, junction, what's your function? See, the people I grew up with in Chicago, they look at this podcast, they know what I'm talking about. But that helped us. We had those sort of things in the community, even though it was low income, even though it was poverty. But a Native American didn't have that because they didn't have TV, they didn't have electricity. Native American leaders still recognize that strong, ethical, and innovatable leadership from various sectors have the ability to transform American Indian communities. Leadership can entail many things. For Native Americans, caring for their people has meant not only securing food and shelter or caring for spiritual teachings and cultural traditions or helping to keep the peace internally, moreover, with neighbors. The community I name that go through poverty and the violence and everything else in the community and the hardship that those communities go through still frown down upon Native American Indians. Poverty is poverty. Low income is low income. We all feel the same pressure. We all go through the same pain, whether it's in the United States or other countries. You feel it. You feel the rejection. You feel the prejudice. You feel that. Everyone in those different cultures at some point in time goes through that. Not just one culture. But the Native Americans been going through it and still go through it. And you don't see them on TV talking about, hey, we deserve our civil rights. Hey, we deserve our rights. Hey, you should focus on the community, what you got going on in this community. Or you don't see the athletes saying, I'm giving back to my Native American community. You see African American athletes doing it. You see the Caucasian athletes doing it. You see the Hispanic athletes doing it. But can you count on your hand how many Native American athletes you see in the front of the camera saying, I'm giving back to my community? I'm not saying they're not doing it. I'm just saying it's not publicized. Low-income families / communities face the following challenges. Now you're going to get to see some of the things that myself and the other leaders face going through low-income communities, environment, for some of the ones who have never been through low income or through poverty. Economic hardship, limited job opportunities, low wages, and high unemployment notes can make it difficult for residents to achieve financial stability. There is no such thing as paycheck to paycheck in poverty, because you don't get a paycheck. You might get state assistance month to month, and the dollar amount that my mother was getting at the time wasn't that much. So with the dollar amount, she had to get clothes and other stuff that didn't require her to use the food stamps that was given to her. The food stamp was for food at the time. Now they have the EBT card. They can use this for multiple things, gas and for cash and everything else. When back then, it was just the food stamps and the card. Educational barriers. You hear me talk about education. Schools in low-income areas may have fewer resources. You damn right we did. I mean, our gym was so not equipped. I commend the Chicago public schools for the athletes that were successful in the 80s and early 90s to get out and to go to colleges and to exceed. When I came out in the 80s, the academic was so bad that we couldn't, unless you was one of them top athletes in the city, you weren't going to a major D1. You was going to a junior college. And at junior colleges back then, the top athletes was going to Kansas and to Texas. And the competition in junior college was just as good as the competition in D1. Because the individual was coming from junior college and go to D1 and fit right into the program. Larger class sizes. Now you go to some of the schools that's not low poverty, the teacher to student ratio might be 20-1. Low poverty, low income, the teacher student ratio might be 40-1. And lower graduation rates. There's no incentives to graduate from high school in those communities because more than likely you don't think you're going to get a job anyway. So sometimes you have to, in order to help out the household, your junior year, or even your senior year, go out and get a job and get money to come in. And those jobs you're getting, but that wasn't paying that much. McDonald's, Burger King's, Kentucky Fried Chicken, Church's Chicken, Popeyes. Those jobs don't pay that much, but those are jobs you had to get because it's the only job you qualify for. Or they had back then what they call vocational schools in Chicago. Whereas you learn a trade, you learn how to do automotive, you learn how to do auto body, you learn how to do accounting, and then before you graduate, you had a little internship you can go to. You work with a company, and then when you graduated from high school, you went into that company. So some kids get involved in that and didn't get that job before they finished high school. And they didn't finish high school, they kept working. My best friend Russell got an accounting job his junior year of high school. And that was back in early 80s. We both be 60 this year. Well, that sucker already 60. And he's still at that same job. Not that same job, but that same profession. I think he only went to 2 or 3 different accounting firms after that. I think he got his own practice now. I just be kicking myself. I'm supposed to know these things. Healthcare access. Limited access to healthcare services. They had what they call the neighborhood community clinic. And you go to the clinic, that clinic be there for 3 months, and then 4th month you go back to that clinic gone. So you couldn't follow up on what was going on with you because that clinic was only there temporarily. And the doctor says that the clinic was there just for college purposes, fulfill the requirement. And then they'll move on. So you might be able to get some medication. You might be able to get a logical treatment. But 9 times out of 10, you didn't. Although neighborhood clinics. You had to go to the hospital to get that correct diagnosis. Healthcare facilities can affect overall health and well-being. Housing issues. Affordable housing can be sacred, leading to overcrowded living conditions and homelessness. My mother had 9 kids. At one point, my little sister wasn't born at that time. We had 8 people in a 4-bedroom apartment. I remember I tell my kids, I remember sleeping in the same bed as my older brother, who's a couple years older than me, and my younger brother. So when you're sleeping in the same bed, 3 to a bed, you got to understand how to sleep. So it's a lot more logical for you to sleep with your foot facing down and not sleep in the middle with your head facing the other 2 individuals' feet. So I did that once. That wasn't good. So my younger brother slept in the same bed. So my brother, my other brother, myself, we didn't do it. We slept. We had him sleep in the bottom, And he was crying all the time because, you roll over. You roll over, your feet hit him in the head, your feet hit him, and he's just crying. But what can he do? Who's the younger brother? Crime and safety. Higher crime rates and a lack of safe spaces can create an environment of fear and instability. It was so bad that if the living building that you stayed in, the project you stayed in, if it was 7-story higher, it was an elevator to that building. And that elevator would not be working. And if the elevator did work, people were urinating in the elevator. I guess they couldn't make it to the apartments. So the elevator smelled like urine when it worked. When it didn't work, it's just there. And if you had the three-story flats, the hallway that you travel up and down the stairs to get to each unit, the light was not on. For some strange reason, they would not keep that light on. And guess what? It smelled like urine. I don't know I guess they couldn't make it to their home to use the bathroom there either. But the condition was not good, so to speak. I saw better, and a lot of people didn't believe me when I said this. I was in the United States Navy, and the ship pulled into, I was on USS Fulton, and we pulled into Jebel Ali. We pulled into Jebel Ali, and then from Jebel Ali, we was able to walk across the desert into Dubai. And they was talking about the stands they had up, and it was doing Ramadan, and how they was sleeping out there. They didn't understand Ramadan season and things. We get into Dubai, and the conditions wasn't like it was in the United States. Where I heard Dubai changed so much now, to the point that actually I was supposed to leave next week and go to Dubai. My wife and I go to Dubai for a couple of weeks. Yes, it's been a year since we've been married, and now we're celebrating our honeymoon in Dubai in a couple of weeks. So those areas look less built up from poverty than the United States at that time. But those countries came a long way now. And so some areas in the United States, I don't know about the major cities in Philadelphia and things of that nature, but in Chicago, they got rid of those low-income project buildings. But because everyone's so closed in together, the crime was there. And because there was no income in some of the households, individuals took up on themselves to take from others. So they felt it was easier, instead of going out there and making it the money themselves, to take it from someone else who was making it. So those are type of fear that you had to go through. You couldn't wear anything of any value. I mean, you go out and buy. I went out and bought me a $10 Timex. Yeah, you ain't gonna find no Timex for $10 now. And the guy robbed me to take my Timex. Why you rob me for $10? But that's how it was back then. So you had fear when you took Chicago Transit Authority, because not everyone in poverty had transportation. You had to take the bus. You fear when you took the train, because there's a lot of violence and fighting, or someone trying to rob you and stick you up in those communities. So you're constantly watching over your shoulder. I mean, you lived in fear. You fear a group of people walking up on you, because you know you had to fight. If you had to fight, you had to fight, and you by yourself. Because you can fight one-on-one for about a minute, and then if you kicking that other person's butt, I can't say the word I want to say, you kicking the other person's butt, then the others jump in. It don't become a fair fight. So you fear. So you always got to be with your boys, because you're with your boys, then you know it's sort of like an equal balance. So that's the fear taking place, and that's the safety as well. The crime, you break into your house. You see, you went to a lot of poverty area because the individual from the community breaking into your houses to supply their drug habit, or just for extra money. So you go into some of the community, you see bars on the windows, or you see a gate on the doors, just for security areas for the individual, because you're still trying to, some individuals was trying to save up to get out of that community. because they want it better for their family, for their kids, because of the fear. Food insecurities. Limited access to nutritious food options. What the hell is that? We ate to eat. I mean, it's like whenever my mother cooked collard greens, we had salt pork. Whenever the holidays, Thanksgiving came up, we had chillings. We used to eat what we call hog head cheese. That's and we call it hot meat with crackers. So I didn't know what healthy was. Well, you didn't have that much food to eat anyway, so you weren't gaining no weight. So we all looked like we was healthy. But nutritious-wise, no. But a lot of us from that neighborhood and my family members, we paying the price now because we didn't live healthy then. So our bodies is paying the price now unless you stay active. Probably look at me and say, well, look at that guy. He has no health issue. Yeah, I'm a diabetic. But I have to stay active and keep my body good and make sure that I'm eating healthy to maintain my numbers. And it's very difficult when your wife is Hispanic. I mean, my wife's mad at me today because I won't eat arepa. It's a lot of carbs in that, sweetheart. I won't eat it. Ooh, let me go on. Transportation. Inadequate public transportation. I talked about the fact that a lot of individuals do not have cars in the project areas of Chicago at that time. And if you showed up with a car, you was a taxi. The cabs didn't come in that community. They was afraid to. So you're the taxi going around making sure everyone gets to where they had to go to. Gas wasn't that expensive back then, so you could get the $1 or $2 for gas and half a tank. But still, that little hoopty that you had, it was a bomb in the projects because nobody else had transportation. Inadequate public transportation options can make it difficult for residents to access jobs, education, and healthcare services. I mean, the closest high school to the projects we was at was about 20 minutes towards the right. They call it Krieger High School, vocational, or 30 minutes towards the left. They call it Harrison High School. So they had a park there they called Douglas Park. So what they did, they built a high school in that park area and called it Collins High School. Social stigma. Residents may face social stigma and discrimination, which can affect mental health and opportunity for advancement. I didn't know what discrimination was when I was young. I didn't start experiencing, you can't leave a neighborhood that you don't have transportation. So you're roaming around the neighborhoods with your own ethnic group. The only thing you're doing is trying to avoid the violence and stay away from the crime. But I didn't know anything about discrimination until I got to high school. And as you're competing in sports in high school, in the city, if you don't see the different cultures inner city high school, you see them when you go and compete for the state title championship. So that's when I saw the other races when I was competing for state. And then that's when I experienced discrimination. Because you just couldn't walk up to another high school kid and start conversating like you was conversating with the kids from your school. Because for some reason, and I didn't understand at first, they'll shy away or they'll walk away or they'll look at us like as if we was an issue. And that's when I started experiencing it. But yet I still didn't understand it. So when I get the basic concept that discrimination and racism was real, when I went to junior college, I left the city of Chicago, the low-income project area, and I took my silly butt to Iola, Kansas. Lord have mercy. I mean, I enjoyed the ride there. No, back in the day, your Trailway bus And your Greyhound bus was the bomb. That's the transportation. I wouldn't fly. I took the bus. So I love the transportation. But when I got there, at that school, Iola, Kansas, had an attendance enrollment of 2,000 students. Out of the 2,000 students, 6 was African American. Out of the 6 African Americans, 2 were female. And out of the 6 African Americans, 4 came from out of state. I said, that is sad. I stayed there for 2 years, though, because I wanted to prove to myself that I can accomplish something and not run away from something. So I stayed there to get the associate degree to prove to myself that, yes, I could do it. And I didn't want to go back to the community I came from. So I said, I'm here. I'm going to finish 2 years, and then I go back home. But I almost didn't make it back home. I went back to Western Illinois University. I'm from Chicago, Illinois. I was so close to going to the University of Nebraska on a track and field scholarship, coming from Allen County Community Junior College. But the last minute, I didn't do it because my roommate, who was Ronnie King, said he was going to Southern Illinois University. So I said, I'm going back to Illinois. That's how I got back to Illinois. And then I wanted to be close to Mom. I was a mama's boy too, so I didn't want to be close to family, but I want to be close to Mom. Family distraction, you know that? Poverty programs based on demonstrating needs have done little to eradicate poverty in America over the past 50 years. Let me say this again. Poverty programs, this is perception. Let me backtrack. This perception that a lot of people have that have never been in poverty, that never experienced poverty or low income, that was born what we call a silver spoon in their mouths, never had to work for anything on a very hard level. This is the perception that they have, that poverty programs based on demonstrating need have done little to eradicate poverty in America over the past 50 years. That's false. That's the false assumption of reasoning that they have. And this is what they say. Those in poverty are lazy and unmotivated to take their future into their own hands. Have you seen how many leaders out there that came from poverty? Even the athletes come from poverty. They had to suffer. They had to go through. You got judges that came from poverty. You got doctors that came from poverty. You got lawyers that came from poverty. To be on that sort of assumption means that, I'm not stating where I got the information from, but meaning that they are so very much outdated. Second, they said, people in poverty cannot be trusted to make good decisions with their money. They are a risky bet. What damn money? Oh, I can't curse on this. I keep forgetting. What money do you have in poverty? What? In order to have money in poverty, you got to have a good job. In order to have a good job, you got to have the academic backings or the trade. A lot of times you don't have that. And that limits you, as I talked about, the educational barriers. So that limits the money that you could have. So you have to be in the job for a period of time and then get elevated through that job. But you're still going through minimum wage to get elevated through that job. So sometimes you go 15 years just to get $20 an hour. And the cost of living today, the $20 an hour ain't gonna go nowhere. Companies and leaders can help income communities. Companies and leaders. I have never seen individual from a company or a leader go into the community and ask the individual community what you need. How can I help you? What's the weakness in this area? How can I bring this poverty area up so that we can get businesses in here and things of that nature? I've never seen that. I've seen leaders in the community have meetings among those leaders in the community to try to see how they can get things up. I'm talking about individuals from outside the community that's already established financially with these businesses, IBM at the time, McDonald's, Walmart, Target, back then in Chicago, Sears, Montgomery Wards. It wasn't in my community. Now you have the athletes that leave, but when they contribute back to the community, whether it be $1 million, $2 million, whatever, they contribute back with materialistic items. Or they try to have a program set up through an organization that really don't get started and get running, and they don't hit the certain kids they don't hit in the inner city that needs that sort of program to keep going. But companies and leaders can help low-income communities by investing directly with the families and the communities at the same time. Not just a community. You know, some communities can be very shady, not only in the United States, but abroad. And a lot of the things, money and things of that nature that you bring to those communities, set up things for the community, never even get beyond the people who has that information or have the funds. That community never establishes. So communicate directly with the families and the communities. Not the community leaders in Chicago, but at the time you have aldermen, not the aldermen, not the mayor. If you are, say Basil, for example, want to give to the low-income area in the city of Chicago, meet with the families. Ask them what their needs are. They'll tell you. By championing the schools to improve students, meet with the schools. Bring them schools up. We never had a weight room when I was in middle school. We had no weight room. Well, what was that? I got to high school and I got into the gym and I looked at the weight room and I looked at my body, looked at my arms. I said, I can't lift that. But if I was involved in weights before I got there, probably yes. Or the football players taking over the weight room, so you really couldn't get in there. I didn't start lifting weights till I got to college. I felt I didn't need to. I got to college and I was in the weight room and I was lifting weights. I'm not going to tell you how much it was. But it was a female on a volleyball team. She was there lifting too. And I was a freshman. And I was in Allen County. And I looked. And I saw what she was lifting versus what I was lifting. Changed my perspective on lifting weights. I had my butt in that weight room every weekend just to prove a point that I was not going to let her outlift me. Family and community well-being. Yeah, they do that. Yeah, the people that come from outside that do that. They deal with the community well-being and thinking that by dealing with the community well-being that they helping the family too. Like I said before, a lot of that doesn't even touch the family. Recognize that your company has a stake in the prosperity and health of low-income communities where it does business and from which it may hire workers. So if you're coming in and you got this big company coming in and they say a distribution center and they came into a poverty area, why? Why did they build that big distribution center in a poverty area? Because it's cheaper. They came in because it was cheap for them to build, and now they're there and they don't hire in the community. They're doing interviews hiring outside the community. So if you got a big plant next to a community of 5,000, your parking lot should be empty because everybody in that community should be walking to that facility. But no, those facilities, the parking lot is full of cars. Why? Because they hire from outside the community. Why? Because the community probably not developed academically. No one invested in that community, nor did they invest in the schooling in that community. So they got this new opportunity to make money in that community, and they said we're building for the community, but yet no one in the community qualifies. You probably get a handful that qualifies for the jobs at that facility. So they hire from outside. So did that community gain anything from what the alderman or what the mayor brought into that community? No. That community is still in the same condition it was when that facility moved in there. Only thing changed now, is the nice windows they put on that building or the doors they left open. Them suckers are locked down. They got something on the windows to prevent you from breaking in there, getting in there, breakers, taking what's in there. That was back then. I don't know about now. Recognize that your company has a stake in the prosperity and health of low-income community where it does business and from which it may hire workers. Armed with that awareness, undertake community engagement activities to benefit those communities. Get out there. I never had anyone come from outside the community in the projects. You know how they have on TV, they show how the fire department is out there doing things for the community in the neighborhood, or the police department is out there doing things in the community for the neighborhood. I never saw it. I never saw a policeman up close. Thank God, because a lot of my buddies saw them up close, put their hands behind their back, felt the hands, felt the cuffs. I never was involved in that. I never saw firemen up close when I was young. Never. Not until I got older. Because I didn't come into the community. You know what I never had, but my kids had in school? I never had show and tell. Never. What the hell am I going to show and tell about? Never had it in school. So the leaders of today that went through poverty have a testimony and a story to tell to your kids. My kids tell me when they was younger, you talk to them. My son said, you talk so much, you do a whole lot of talking, you try to explain everything, blah, 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 blah. My son, 33 years old now with 3 kids, and he finds himself talking to his kids all the time. Yeah, you listening to me. You found out. Communicate with them. It's better to talk to them than to hit them. Even though you don't think your kids are listening, your kids hear you. And later in life, that comes back up. My son said, I hate the military. Dad, you was part of the military. I ain't like the military. I never go in the military. I want nothing to do with the military. This dude made his bid according to military standards. Tucked it up. You can bounce a quarter off of it. So you was listening. There are many, many examples of entrepreneurs and business persons who started without 2 pennies to rub together. And through hard work and dedication, managed to build themselves hugely successful businesses. They started with nothing and are now worth millions or even billions of dollars. And I'm not talking about the music industry, because you got a lot of talented young kids made it through the music industry. And people don't understand that it's very hard to make it through the music industry because you got so many talented kids, and it's so competitive. I know back when I was young, the area that was very hard to make it in was acting. And people just go to California to try to have an acting career. There was so many people doing that it was so tough. But the music industry is even tougher. I mean, there's so many talented kids out there, and you got different types of music. And it's still talented. You can say, oh, I'm focused in jazz. There's not that many people in jazz. Oh, yeah. A lot of kids very talented in jazz. A lot of kids can rap to music. A lot of kids can actually sing. And a lot of the talent, whether the people want to say it or not, I say for the African American community, the root of the talent is from the church. Hymns or songs, worship songs. Believe it or not, when they was picking cotton back in the day, they were singing in the fields. So don't say, oh, I'm not spiritual, I've never been to church. I didn't say you had to go to church. I said the root comes from that. Although, and through hard work and dedication, managed to build themselves huge successful businesses. They started with nothing and now worth millions or even billions of dollars. Poverty do not discriminate. You have blacks, Hispanics, Native American, Asians, whites, and many others who have lived in poverty and low-income housing. Just to state a few. Howard Schultz. He was born in Brooklyn, New York. He was the chairman and CEO of Starbucks from 1996 to 2000 and from 2008 to 2017. An interim CEO from 2022 to 2023. He wasn't black. He was white. And he lived in poverty. So when you say poverty, the first thing a lot of people picture is the face of an African American, the face of a Hispanic. They don't look at the Native American when they say poverty. They look at those two ethnic groups. They say poverty. I mean, on applications now, they go as far as to say, are you Hispanic or non-Hispanic? Well, hell, just ask the question. Like you used to, African-American, Caucasian, Hispanics. No, they got another question. Hispanic or non-Hispanic? The hell that mean? Woo. Oprah Winfrey was born in, Oprah said the town, I still can't pronounce. I just said Coast School, Mississippi. M-I-S-S-I-S-S-I, humpback high. Oh, I'm okay. I know. M-I, cricket letter, I. Cricket letter, I. Humpback, I. Don't play with me. I get that. Yeah. She is an American talk show host, television producer, actress, author, and media preparator. She's also a billionaire. John Paul DeJuro was born in Los Angeles, California. He's an American entrepreneur, self-made billionaire. I said self-made billionaire and philanthropist, best known as co-founder of the Paul Mitchell line of hair products and Patron Spirits Company. I wouldn't get no hair product from if it was any kind of good health product, then I wouldn't be sitting here like this. My boys been sitting like this. I mean, when your hair fall off, it stays on the sides, and then the top part just goes away, and you can't get that sucker back to the... let me move on. Ursula Burns was born in Manhattan, New York. She is an American businesswoman, best known for her tenure as the CEO of Xerox from 2009 to 2016. She was the chairman of Xerox from 2010 to 2017. So those are successful individuals that came from poverty, low income, to leadership. So basically what I'm saying is there's nothing impossible or too difficult for an individual to do, to become a leader. Some people say leaders are born, not made. I don't know about all that, because I just proved that your environment, the society, economic, and the socio-economics and things of that nature can mold you into a leader. So people have all sorts of saying, but your strong, dominant leaders, your visionaries, I would say, these are my percentages. I haven't done any research yet. These are my percentages. I would say about 90% of those individuals lived in low income or poverty. Because if you already have the money, you're already rich, why should you have a vision? You haven't tried to gain anything because you already have it. But your visionaries come from individuals who don't have it, but want it. And those individuals came from low income or poverty. Okay, we talk about that. Thank you for that. Next thing I want to put out is at the end of the podcast, you will see producer going to put up the flyer for the Zoom conference. That Zoom conference, I'm going to talk about, it's broken into 4 sections. It's not in person, it's Zoom. We're going to talk about leaders, leadership, self for the month of September. And the month of October, we're going to talk about leaders, and truth. And the month of October, we also going to have Dr. Andy Rojas teach with me in October, because he's done research on individual leadership and trust. And he has a book coming out too. I will announce that when he's done with that book. You guys know Dr. Andy Rojas. I had him on the show twice already. Good friend of mine. We both went through the doctoral program together. In addition, it'd only be $30 per section. So each time, so you say you want to come in on the first section is on the 14th. So say you want to just do you want to come in and do the section on the 14th. All sections from 9 o'clock a.m. to 12 o'clock noon. And the last 30 minutes of the section will be question and answers. So say you want to do the 14th. So the 14th, you'll pay your $30 for the 14th per person, per section. And then say you want to do the next section. For the next section, same thing. You pay your $30 and then per person, per section. And we're going to go from there. It's going to be very informative. and we're going to have a chance to bounce things off each other's leaders, bouncing off leaders, and that'll be our a chance for iron to sharpen iron. And it'll be 4 sections, and he's gonna put the flyer up. How do you pay? You go through the plan and pricing section of my website, www.dremerybusinesssolution.com. It's going to be on the flyer that he put up. You go on their website, you go to the subheading that said plan and pricing. You go in. They're going to have 3 sections there. Section 1, 2, 3. You're going to have $30 for each one. But you can click on either one of them, and it'll take you to the payment section. All I ask is when you pay for your section, just shoot me an email. You can have my email on there as well, emmettemery1@aol.com. You shoot me through my email. You shoot me an email. Let me know what your email address is. And once I get your email address after you pay, I will shoot you the information for the Zoom so you can be on the Zoom. Fair enough? Okay. Now, I talked about my book before. I have pretty good sales on the books. You guys have been purchasing it. But I'm not going to end this podcast by talking about the books. Are you ready? Are you ready? Okay, here we go. Subscribe to me. Thank you. I appreciate you. Until we meet again, goodbye.